I am Urban Sedlar from University of Ljubljana, and I'm going to be briefly presenting the Uncap Box and the Uncap Web application. Now, the Uncap Box and the Uncap Web app represent two important pieces of the end-to-end Uncap solution. Uncap interconnects on one side the elderly, and on the other side a caregiver or a medical professional. A scenario of how this could be used is seen in the picture. For example, the elderly person is using a glucometer, Bluetooth glucometer, interconnected with the Android application. The Android app Uncap Box runs on basically any Android hardware, smartphones, tablets, or even set-top boxes, and the data is from the Android app pushed to the backend, from where it is loaded into the web-based dashboard and can be inspected by a professional. Let's look at the Uncap Box for Android first. This is the biggest piece of software that the elderly interacts with. It runs on most Android devices, for example, on phones, tablets, or set-top boxes, and supports the full Uncap feature set. The Android platform has a suitable price point for large deployments. Now here's a couple of screenshots of the Uncap Box for Android. There's a login screen. This is basically the same for elderly or caregivers, but it provides a different option for caregivers to select a patient and basically do the measurement in the name of the patient. That's the basic home screen for the elderly. Here you can see an example of the offline mode, which is also supported, which basically disables the features that are that can't be used when there's no internet connection, but some features can still be used even when there's no internet connection, as we'll see later, for example, measurements and entertainment. And here we can see an example of the red button being triggered. Some of the features of the Uncap Box for Android are support for different kinds of measurements and data acquisition, modules for elderly and nurse authentication, which are different, data sync, which basically syncs all the data to the cloud backend and even buffers the data when there's no connectivity, overview of historical charts and display of real-time charts, entertainment app launcher, and there's also tons of features developed by other partners, such as notifications, video calling, location acquisition and reporting, fit for all, red button, and so on. Now, regarding device support, devices are an important addition for capturing medical parameters. And we've defined here in Uncap a standard way to integrate external devices into the main application, and we call that driver. Now, driver is a separate Android application. It can be closed source, which means it's interoperable on the API level and can be provided by the device vendor. In this picture here, you see a glucometer, and this glucometer is paired with a driver which understands it, and both can be provided by the same company. Now, in this case, of course, we've developed the driver, and the driver speaks here on the right side, the red arrow, the standard Uncap API, which means it can communicate the data to the main Android application, and that one can in turn pass it to the Uncap cloud. Now, when a new driver is certified and inserted into our catalog, it can be added on any device. And here's the procedure of how that might work. In the settings menu, we add a new device, and then we have an option to either scan a code, barcode, QR code, scan the NFC tag, or enter the data manually. Here we've chosen barcode. scan the barcode with the phone camera, and this automatically directs us to Google Play, opens the app, the driver application, and offers the possibility of installing it. And once the driver is installed, the box automatically detects it and it can be readily used. Here's an example of our blood glucose measurement driver. This is the glucometer that we've supported, the iHealth BG5, and this is a wizard, multi-step wizard for doing the measurement. You can see it shows here with the indicators how far we are in that process. So first it asks the user to turn it on and wait for it to connect. Once it's connected, it prompts the user to insert the strip. And once the strip is inserted, it asks the user to provide blood. Then it performs the measurement and shows the value. And at the same time, it also pushes the data to the backend. Now here's a similar driver done for the weight measurement. This one supports the iHealth SH4S scale and again guides the user step by step through the procedure of weighing themselves. Now there's also an Uncap Box version for iOS. But since iOS has many more limitations on how to perform cross-application communication, we've only supported a limited set of functionalities. For data exchange, we've used the Apple HealthKit API, and here you can see that once the Uncap application is authorized to read data from HealthKit, it can in fact fetch data from most HealthKit compatible apps. Now another big piece on the other side, on the caregiver side, is the Uncap web application. This one of course can be used by caregivers, doctors, or even the elderly or the next of kin. It's an HTML5 based rich web app that relies on a number of cloud-based microservices for fetching the data, authentication, and so on. Some of the features of the web app include authentication against the same authentication microservice as the Box application, selection of users and display of basic information, data storage and retrieval through the database microservice, display of historical charts, display of real-time data and real-time charts, and integration with multiple external applications such as Atlante, Fit4All, PHR, notification service, WebRTC video call service, and so on. Now the web application provides multiple user levels. Here we can see what the patient would see. This is where the scenario where the patient is logged in, and the patient can of course see their own data and also access some external services. In this example, the patient can browse the historical chart for the heart rate data. Additionally, also a table form is provided for the measurements, so the data can be seen with numerical values. However, this is a different view. This is something that a doctor would see. And in this case, we are logged in as a doctor, and in addition to all of the data that the user can see, now the doctor can also see some observations that were entered by the doctor. The doctor can also edit the patients and add new patients. And the third level is the system administrator's view. This is a person that manages the entire pilot, can create patients and doctors or nurses, and also assign relationships, which means it can move the sysadmin can move patients from one doctor to another or change any of the details within the pilot. So this was a brief overview of the Uncap application, Uncap Box application, and the Uncap Web GUI. And I'd like to thank you for your attention.